All right. So, hello everyone. In today's video, we're doing round 2 of ABP 2023. The motion was you are a young, talented rising star in one of the top 4 European football leagues, Germany, Spain, Italy, and England. You have just been offered a multi-million dollar contract by a club in the emerging Saudi Pro League, and it is substantially higher compensation than any other contract in a European league. The Saudi Pro League is the national football league in Saudi Arabia. And the motion is this house would accept the contract to play in the Saudi Pro League. And yeah, no, definitely. We were opening government. I was prime minister for this debate. I do not admittedly know a lot about sports or not sports, soccer, football in particular. And I think that I knew just a little bit of um you know the offer for Ronaldo, the offer for um Messi, the offer for Mbappe, and all of that. I know that like quite um quite a lucrative industry and quite huge offers, and I also know that football is a huge thing in terms of loyalty and community, and also about um staying with the franchise and competing in the highest level in the European League. So I'm completely aware of those issues. Just not the particular details on like teams and names and all of that other stuff. So when I was looking at this motion, um I actually didn't really panic that much about the sporting aspect. I was just so game to just make this about money and make this about um financial security, and why this is the most important thing for the actor. So as you can see, and as you will see in this particular video, in this particular one, that was my strategy entering to the debate. I wouldn't change it at all. um no matter which team I was against. We were up against some pretty strong teams in this particular debate as well. And so now I was pretty just game to just show that this is the most important thing no matter what, that no other argument can supersede it. And so let's just see how this plays out in this particular debate.
Money is important, time is important. For these reasons, playing at a place where you can shine is uniquely exceptional. I have two arguments in this speech. Number one, why this is an exceptional opportunity for a young player's career development. And number two, on why money is more important than anything else, such as fan recognition and backlash, what they might argue in opposition. Before this, 3 points of framing in this debate. Number one, this motion does not stipulate any overt or clear political preference or inclination for this particular actor. So we would argue that for the average young, talented, rising star in the top 4 European League, which is a small minority of individuals, they do and should care more about their career than anything else. FIFA, for example, is not going to criticize Saudi Arabia. US is not going to criticize Saudi Arabia for a variety of reasons like political affiliations. And you also, as an individual, cannot change Saudi politics. Number two,
Oh yeah, no, I remember why I did this. I think it was this framing that I'm doing at the beginning was just to neutralize and completely eliminate all the other arguments that op could run, which is that Saudi Arabia is quite controversial as a state, and that you would likely hurt your fan base, or that you would likely um betray some principle about working for this league, if you were to work for this league, and that you have to adhere to this principle. I mean, of course opposition could run those arguments. I'm just framing this quite definitively at the beginning, that you know given that it's uncertain what the values are, and it's also quite unlikely that you will even make any change to begin with, and that it's not even the most important thing, even if you had that as a priority. I'm quite happy to just already take that out from the beginning.
to the extent that participation in the Saudi Pro League impacts your career in terms of your reputation or your immediate backlash or the associations you have, if we can demonstrate that this is successful for your own career and that it also associates you with an emerging league that could also be good for you and your optionality as an individual, then this is also more important than the short-term backlash you might face by a people that you had some short-term fan base in the European League.
Okay, yeah, no. I remember as well with this framing, I also definitely was worried, definitely, about the fan backlash argument. In retrospect, when I remember the debate, I know that op didn't really hit on that much. But what was successful in the debate was that I think it was quite clear that I wanted to say that relative success in the Saudi Pro League is more important than like competing in a very competitive European league. And that was quite a huge issue in the debate. Like everyone was really saying that because you're competing against the best of the best in the European league, you will be a better player, you will get a lot of focus, and that you will improve your career there, and your career will just die in the Saudi Pro League. So my approach was to say that you will actually just get better as a player in the Saudi Pro League because resources are focused on you. And I also wanted to say that like it's quite awesome that you are able to be part of an emerging league and be one of the pioneers in it. And that is already in and of itself a huge benefit to beat out the fan argument, fan backlash argument of op. So yeah, no, I was trying to definitely try to juggle a lot of things at the same time here, which is fine, right? You're gonna do this a lot anyways. But I wanted to centralize it into saying that if we can demonstrate that we're successful in your career in the Saudi Pro League, that's getting better and better, then we'll win in all of those other issues. So I hope you understand why that's the particular strategy I'm doing here. Like it's quite routine at the beginning. That's why I'm doing it very very fast. But it's quite critical for this debate.
Thirdly, the likely comparative in this debate is that you would have stayed in the European League with your meager lower salary, and we would argue you might have potential to succeed in the future, you might wait that over time, but we would argue this is more risky, and that will also something we will demonstrate at opening government. What I want to say at the top of this speech, it is most likely, in terms of this contract, that this contract is for 1 season or 2. That's just the contract they gave to Mbappe, the contract that they gave to Ronaldo, or the contracts they're giving to a lot of top 4 European League stars. And there are so many league standards as to how this would create optionality for you to renew one's contract in the future. So our case opening government preemptively will say that whether or not you will join back to the Euro League, whether or not you will choose to stay at the Saudi League in the future, whether it succeeds or doesn't, this contract now has $100 million contract. It is going to be exceptional for you, and it opens up more options for you in the future, and that is something that will over-encompass everything else in this debate. So that's the framing that I want to start off with, which
Okay, so I will note that yeah, no, I'm happy with this framing. I will say that in retrospect, like even thinking about the debate and reviewing it right now, the reason as to why I wanted to focus on optionality as like the key frame was that I wanted to say that you could do anything afterwards, but as long as you accept this deal now, then that's great. Opposition, actually closing opposition in particular, I remember there's a really really good argument in the debate later on to say that like no, you are likely gonna be stuck in the Saudi Pro League and you can't go back to the European Pro League anyways. Um, and so I remember later on in the debate, I get so uh fixated on try to defend this optionality point when I could have actually just doubled down and say that even if you stay in the Saudi Pro League, then that's fine. And I think that that's also okay. I think maybe if I wanted to do this strategy of optionality, I could still do it so long as I still say that our case will respond to the case where even if they stay in the Saudi Pro League, then that's perfectly fine as well. I think if I commit to optionality too much, then that makes the case a little too narrow, and it's quite easy for op to give reasons as to why it's not gonna be flexible as a contract. And I think I should have definitely responded in a broader way to show that it applies even if I'm stuck in the Saudi Pro League. So I actually note that down already. Like I should have incorporated into the framing that this is okay even if you get stuck in the Saudi Pro League. Yeah, no, definitely quite important for me to mention this at the top at this one. Time management not so good. I should get into my argument right now. And let's just see how I do the time management here.
leads me on to the argument. Number one, why is it exceptional for you as a young player who is rising and also is talented, which means that they have worked very hard for this career and they're 18 years old or 19 years old and they're at the brink of their career to be more exceptional in the future? Three reasons as to why this is the case in the Saudi Pro League. Number one, it is empirically the case you will get more definitive playing time as associated to your coach and as associated to the financial contract and the competitiveness of the pool within the emerging Saudi Pro League. Like, there literally will be hundreds of thousands of dollars dedicated to training you, making you at your peak physical shape, and your ability to improve more and more in the hundreds and thousands of more exponential capacities that you otherwise would have in the opportunities you get in playing in the European League, where there are other people that are more talented than you, more established than you, like the captains or the captain of the European League and Team England, the one from Korea, who's exceptional and also getting a lot more playing time than you. And obviously,
I now know that is Son. All right, I now know that. That's perfectly fine. Let's skip that for a moment and let's just keep on going.
a lot of the media coverage is also centered on that. Number two, it is easier to be noticed by media coverage and the highlights because you are a big fish in a smaller pond. Like, empirically, it is the case that you are one of the more foreign players that is going to shine because you will get more playing time, and also you are going to be able to be focused on by the hype that is surrounded this multi-million-dollar contract, because it's also going to be once in a lifetime that is also going to be proposed, and there will be other players that will also presumably be offered this contract in the future, making it more likely that you are also going to be the leader and the first mover advantage against other individuals that are also joining this pro league in the future, because you create a competitive incentive for other leagues to also do that same thing as well. And lastly, you are a foreign person, which it's much more intrigue around yourself as an individual, which makes it easier for you to shine and easier for you to make your name for yourself. Why does this matter? You care for your longevity in the spotlight. You also care for you to demonstrate your unique skills and your star individuality, which are things that are oftentimes depleted or oftentimes at significant risk in a young rising talented career. Like, don't make the mistake that a young rising talented career will always guarantee success in a European top league, because there's always going to be new young talent that will be recruited from those same leagues that are also being summer development camps that are created in those places as well. So it's very, very easy that that could be replaceable, but also the fact that you will also be outshone simply because of time. Like, Isaiah Thomas, he's not going to get any taller, but because Isaiah Thomas was able to be kicked out by the Boston Celtics and went to another league, his optionality as an individual became much more as his ability to play the game that he wanted to play for a very, very long time, because he...
To be fair, that's a very bad example. To be fair, I think it's quite clear that that career also failed later on. But the more important point I want to make is that I definitely was struggling in building this argument. Like, I was waffling a bit by having a bit of circular arguments, because I think I mean, it wasn't a circular argument, but it's more like, I think when I was building the reasons, I ended up trying to build too much and juggling too much at the same time. So while I was talking about how you get more media attention, I was also simultaneously talking about why the Saudi Pro League is gonna also grow at the same time and grow exponentially and also build more. So definitely, I think I was a bit too convoluted with the way I was building my responses here. But I do think what was quite good from this argument was the weighing at the end, which is the part where I'm saying that you care for your longevity, you care for your reputation, your individuality, and your ability to demonstrate yourself. And that's why, independent of all things, independent of success, you just being exposed more is a good thing. I also should have just added that, like, you could just get your career ended if you get an injury, which is also quite likely, even if you're very, very young, because you're exerting just more of your energy all the time. So that's quite definitely an important part of the framing here. I think right now I'm at a severe point where my time management is critical. Like, I am at a point where I am about to just botch the speech entirely. I have to get to my second argument here, or accept the POI and then just go to my second argument. Because it's actually very, very scary at this point. I was also very scared at this point. I think that's quite definitely clear from the way I'm doing my speech right now.
knew that the Saudi League or the China League would never give up on him. So you care about these things more than anything else. Your ability to play, your control and autonomy that you have over your own contract are more important things in your ability to leverage yourself. I'll take the PR from closing.
They allow Cristiano Ronaldo to recontract after one season because he's a world-famous superstar. Why would you, as a young rising talent, have the same level of negotiating power?
I mean, because they...
Yeah, no, this is actually quite important. this POI is exceptional from closing up. It's quite good. It's quite good. That's a really good POI. Like I think part of the assumption of my argument was, yeah, you will have that optionality. I mean, to be fair, I do a lot in proving that I will have that leverage because I will be unique and I will get a lot of media time and playing time. Um However, I think I did not open up my argument to the possibility that, I just might, in the pursuit of getting more playing time, I will also have more responsibilities to stay in the league more, and I will not be able to opt out of that league. And so I think at this point I had an option, right? I had the option to either deprioritize the importance of the optionality argument and try and respond a bit more hardline to closing up, or I just had to defend it and then prove that I will have this leverage and this optionality and that I can renegotiate the contract. So so it's actually quite an important dilemma. Like the POI is begging me to abandon my argument, but I just spent so much time building this argument. And so it's quite a critical point at this point. It's quite a critical point for me as to whether or not I will drop the argument. I mean, quote unquote, drop the argument in the sense that, am I going to shift it in a different direction, or am I just gonna play around and defend it until the very end? I don't know. So let's just see what I do.
Have an incentive to give you that optionality so that you could accept the contract. I think it's empirically the case that no one is going to make a contract that says you will permanently stay in the Saudi Pro League. And you want to prove first that you will be exceptional, which makes you easier to stay in the contract, do better while you're in the contract, so they give you the front load fixed capital to be able to invest those resources, which makes it easier for you to work longer and longer hours on part of the contract. Independent of that, how does this argument still function?
Yeah, no, I actually do think this is so looking at this response and just framing the critical decision point I had earlier, I will say it is quite fine that I commit to the bit and commit to defending that it will be an open contract as much as possible. I vividly do remember that Bea later on, my teammate later on, goes on to just doubling down on saying that even if you stay in the Saudi Pro League, that's okay. And doing all the even if our responses from there. I think for my speech, it's like okay that I commit until the very end because I commit to a very flawed argument because I don't want to abandon the argument completely. But I also do recognize that I wasted so much time with this POI response because I'm trying to revive like a dead goose or something. And so that's why I wanted to rush the second argument as well. Quite an important part as well.
Money is more important than short-term recognition and backlash. Why is fan backlash less important? Number one, you will not be playing this game for too long. You could get an injury, which could end your career. You could also probably lose faith in the game, and you might also not want to play in the later ends of your career, and therefore, sometimes most young rising talents oftentimes lose a lot of motivation early on. And number two, you don't often interact with a lot of these fans. You don't devote much of time thinking about this, and you devote more of your time working out or playing the game. What then does this mean? Money in the hundreds of millions can uniquely unlock a lot of possibilities for you and your own future. Like, for example, we think a $10 million contract is substantially different than a $100 million contract because your ability to buy assets which you otherwise would not have, your ability to pay for rent, retirement savings, and your family and all these other things, and sponsorships and brands associated to the Saudi brand name and the Saudi Pro League name are things that are even relatively more long-lasting for you within your tenure as a career player compared to the tenure that happens with the turnover that happens within the European League for many different players that have their career die out very early on. Like think people like Kai Soto, other players that had young rising talented stars whose careers were simply
I actually, sorry, let me just end the speech first.
dwindled by the starlight of others. For these reasons, this is a unique opportunity. It unlocks a lot of possibilities. We're very proud to propose.
No, actually, like, I think this part, this last few minutes or the last 2 minutes was actually by far so efficient. Like, I think what I did here was quite good in just immediately saying why fan backlash is less important because of the injury and all the longevity stuff. And also just adding a lot of stuff here to say that money in the hundreds of millions is just better than in the tens of millions. I think that was, in retrospect, it turned out to be quite helpful. Like, I remember later on in the debate, everyone was saying that, dude, you're rich anyways. Like, why does this matter that much? And I think I already impacted it by saying that, you don't know if you're gonna stay in the European League. You don't know if you're gonna stay in the Saudi Pro League. So the fixed big contract now with the Saudi Pro League, just accepting it immediately is already fantastic compared to like hoping that you're gonna get extended in your contracts in the European Pro League when that might not always happen or be the case all the time. Actually, I do like this particular last part. To be fair, I only give like a quite a simple example of like, oh, you could have assets or buy a house or whatever. But I probably should have added a little bit more, but I did have no time to build that, which is why it's critical as well in this particular one. So, anyways, just some last learning points from this particular debate. Yeah, it's quite clear that I should have incorporated the framing into the should have incorporated into the framing that it's okay even if you get stuck in the Saudi Pro League. Second, I think the injury longevity, all of this part is good framing. It's quite helpful framing for an actor debate in particular because of the uncertainty. Like the uncertainty angle is quite helpful in this debate for me to play along with, which is why even if like later on as the debate happened, right, closing gov, closing op, go into this hobble wobble of like whether or not you will actually have this type of contract, whether or not you will actually like follow your fan base or care that much about it. Like I fixated a lot on the contract, like the fixed contract that you're getting right now, the short term one, and why the guarantees from that are already good independent of everything else, which is why I think the second argument eventually like outshines the optionality argument of the first one. So in retrospect, I do think that the optionality argument wasn't the best way to frame it alone, and that's why that was also a detriment to the speech eventually. Yeah, and that contributed to the POI moment that I was talking about earlier. Okay, that's pretty much it. Yeah, still a great speech. I ended up, I mean, obviously we ended up still winning this debate, because of that framing and because of the even if responses later on. But I think this is quite helpful still, quite helpful of an instructive speech to still go over. And I actually don't remember. I actually am very happy to go back into that POI response and that POI moment, which is a point of vulnerability. Actually, it's quite a helpful one. And quite important to go through those moments as well. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy.